Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. Of course, we've seen the saga of the Cypher unfold further in the last couple of days. We've also seen, of course, the former secretary to the PM, Azam Khan, make some revelations. We'll be talking about the ramifications of these revelations and the statements earlier on, like play with it, which were made pursuant to the Cypher. Its relevance to overall the security situation of the country. Was it jeopardized? Was it thrown under the bus in a manner that we saw later unfold? Was it played with? A lot of that, the revelations that have come up seem to indicate things in that direction. We'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about the legal side of things as far as this Cypher is concerned, and what it means pursuant to the Official Secrets Act, what it can potentially mean for the former Prime Minister, what it could have meant for the security of the country, what it could mean for the future of the political process overall. All of those things today on Perspective. I have with me Barrister Yasser, Latif, Hamdani, who is a legal expert. Thank you for being with us. We also have with us Hafiz Ehsan Khoka, who is also a legal expert, lawyer of the Supreme Court. Thank you for joining us. We'll also be joined by other guests a little later on. Yasser, like I said, you know, the potential ramifications of what's happening as far as the Cypher is concerned are huge. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. The way that the Cypher saga, so to speak, unfolded, we saw, you know, a document flashing before people, being flashed before people, being waved at crowds, and that is where it began from. And then later, you know, there were cabinet meetings, and there were different meetings, and there were, you know, different angles to the whole saga that were, you know, told, the stories that were told. And we saw the kind of reaction of the people. Then later, a little later on, we also saw the, you know, as if the air had sort of left the balloon and deflate a little bit. Overall, how do you look at what's happening as far as the Cypher conspiracy is concerned now?
Well, I think it was, as far as the Cypher is concerned, that is a balloon that's kind of exploded, hasn't it? I mean, there's no air in it anymore. The fact of the matter is that the Cypher, which was an official communication between a diplomat, a Pakistani diplomat, a servant of Pakistan with his Prime Minister, that is an official secret document. Therefore, the ramifications of something like this would obviously, they are very serious indeed. I mean, it's not just the Official Secrets Act. I think that goes without saying. But if one was to argue, one could, you know, extend this to mean that there was an active attempt on part of the former Prime Minister to subvert the constitutional process. You know, because that's how Mr. Kasuri...
I want to go and talk about the legal side of things. I'm also going to go to Hafiz Sahab with this, but we also have with us Faisal Karim Kundi, who is Special Assistant to the Prime Minister. Thank you for joining us. Before I go to you, Hafiz Sahab, Kundi Sahab, this Cypher now, it's being talked about, it's come out again. We saw the revelations that have come after, you know, the former secretary to the PM, and a lot that has been said. What is your overall government? What do you plan to do about it now that these revelations have been made?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Cypher story has started again. Earlier, when the last government was facing no confidence motion, at once the former Prime Minister came with one of the paper. He was floating in on the air that I have got this Cypher and US is against me, and they want me to be thrown out of the government by the no confidence motion, otherwise the Pakistan will face the sequences. And then on the other side, then again the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of that time, he said that I just reject this no confidence motion because there is involvement of US in Pakistan, and this Cypher is this. Thing is that at that time Prime Minister and at that time the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, they didn't read what was in the Cypher. First thing is, Cypher it's normal, it's for the Foreign Office. Today if you say the Foreign Minister Bilal Bhutto Zardari comes up in one of the letter that this is used against Pakistan People's Party and starts saying that this came to Foreign Office against Pakistan, this is not, you take oath. Normally when things are delivered to Prime Minister House is through Principal Secretary of Prime Minister. It's addressed to Principal Secretary of the Prime Minister, and then it goes to the Prime Minister. And Principal Secretary of the former Prime Minister came that it was also, and then the Prime Minister saying at that time, the former Prime Minister, that I don't know where the Cypher gone. I have lost it.
The misplacing of the Cypher.
This is not misplacing. It was when he comes to public here in Pakistan, he used to say that US is against me. When he goes to US, or if the delegation from US comes, then he was saying that army is against me. They have thrown me out. Thing was, he was playing to the gallery. He was playing with the people of Pakistan because there is a sentiment against US. So they said because US is against me and I'm doing it. After that, when no confidence motion was done and new Prime Minister came, couple of delegation from US went to see the former Prime Minister. Their ambassador also went to see him. He went, the ambassador and the other delegation went to his colleagues also. But in not a single meeting, they have agitated against US that they have done this. But it was just playing to the galleries, nothing else.
Hafizah, playing to the galleries, the political side of things is one thing, but the other side, of course, is the oath that the Prime Minister takes. The legal side is also the Official Secrets Act, which is, of course, you know, an act which has its own potential ramifications. Legally, how do you look at, you know, what has transpired, the legality of it? Not the politics. I mean, let's leave the politics.
Thank you so much. As a Prime Minister or as a leader of the National Assembly, he is under the obligation while taking the oath that he will preserve the Constitution and he will not disclose anything which is brought into the knowledge to somewhere else until he is compelled by the law to speak to the public. So this is another aspect. The second aspect, most important, would be that the missing of the document is most important, because the contents, I mean, he disclosed the contents, he came on the public procession, then there was a meeting of the national security and there was certain minutes, and finally... Even the minutes apparently were also misplaced. Minutes. And the most important thing would be, as a Prime Minister for Pakistan, he should not say like that I have delivered the document, the Cypher, to the Prime Minister office, and the Prime Minister office, the Secretary says that it is not with me. So it is a very serious issue, and there would be a very serious legal repercussions on this side, that at the top most office barrier of the country, and there is a very sensitive document received from our ambassador, and which gets lost. What ultimately we can say on it?
Let me go to Zahid Gishkori Sahab, who's a senior journalist. I'll come back to you. Ji, Zahid Sahab, can you hear me?
Yes, Mahrukh.
Again, you know, we're talking, of course, you know, the Cypher has been discussed once, but the way that, you know, now, the way things that have come to light are in a lot of ways seem to be irrefutable. Do you agree? You think that, you know, what is being said at this time, the Cypher misplacing and then, you know, having been misplaced, and then of course the minutes also, do you think it's incriminating a lot of the details that are now coming out?
I think the statement got recorded by former Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister could play a decisive role, because the investigation team formed by the government started its work from March 2023, and so far all the statements recorded in this case, this statement seemed to be a damning one, particularly against the former Prime Minister, because he was the custodian of privacy, not only, but also the head of the government, the diplomatic cable, which was otherwise a routine diplomatic cable sent by the then Pakistan top diplomat posted in the United States. And he, in his statement, according to my information, categorically told investigation agency that it was a routine diplomatic cable. The discussion took place at his residence, was sent to the government of Pakistan, and later on it was used for political purpose. And the statement now, Azam Khan got recorded with the investigation agency.
Zahid Sahab, you know, the statement, there are, you know, there's some suspicion being attached to the statement. How would you answer that? How do you counter that?
I also, listen, in any sort of investigation, there always have been ifs and buts and many questions being raised by from the both sides. But this matter is quite serious, and absolutely that's what the investigation agency, the government, and the institutions are taking this matter in a particular way. That as the former principal secretary called spade a spade, that it was used for political purpose, because now the revelation we got from the sources that
he seems to be making these revelations after an absence of some time, and I think that's a question for Kundi Sahab. I'll come back to you. Zahid Sahab, I'm going to go to Yasser. Yasser, Official Secrets Act, Section 5 particularly, what does it entail, legally speaking?
Well, essentially, but there's, I should go and say essentially it's not just the official secrets, but officials, Cypher being one of those documents that is of paramount national importance. Now that document being used and waved around in this blatant manner, that itself creates, it is something that becomes, because what you're doing is you're taking a Cypher and then you're obviously misplacing it, right? So then that's where the ambit of the Official Secrets Act comes in, you know, because what you have is essentially what you can possibly have is obviously a sentence that can last up to 14 years. That's what the law minister said, and I agree with him. And then the misplacing itself is a separate offence. So that is tribal separately.
But I believe that there must be tiers of people involved, as you know, as far as these secret documents are concerned, and who must be privy to them, and they must have handled them. So there must be, you know, like what can one say? There must be a train, or so to speak, you know, of people who would be involved in something like this.
I believe obviously when the net is cast, it would be a wide-ranging conspiracy, you know, wide-ranging conspiracy that would involve other people, and I think we've seen some of that happen with Mr. Azam Khan's statements yesterday or the day before, or his statement before the magistrate. I think we're seeing the unraveling of that conspiracy, the so-called conspiracy narrative, the Cypher narrative. But you know, you see, I think one thing that you know, apart from the law, of course, I would say that what we are seeing is basically a repetition of the populist playbook, as it were.
But how far it went, that's the question.
Exactly.
Right? And that's what, Hafiza, for this to become political, for this to, you know, come out like this, for this to be used in a political manner, you know, and then the fact that, you know, the Prime Minister of any country, where does, you know, again, we've had this discussion before, but it becomes important again, where does his populist politics stop and his role as Prime Minister of the entire nation, of the entire country come into play? And, you know, legally he has an oath by which he must abide.
As a political leader of the political party, until he not enters into the office of the Prime Minister, he has a quite different role. But when someone as a leader of the party into the office of the Prime Minister, there are certain legal obligations, not legal obligation but constitutional obligations as well. So in this particular case there are certain gray areas where the FIA is investigating the matter, and two things will be important. One is how extent his principal secretary has made the statement.
Okay.
Number one,
how accurate they are?
Yeah, how accurate they are, and how extent I mean he is saying on it. But so many things they are on the media, that what the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister has spoken on.
I believe that it wasn't taken physically, the confession statement that's come out.
Yeah, definitely. But the first thing is that that there is no bar on the legal side that any person, either he is under arrest or not, he can be taken for a confession before the magistrate. So in this particular case, he's made a judicial confession.
But it wasn't physical, so does that matter at all or no?
Definitely it matters, because if you make some statement, you have to go over there, sign over there, and it is not a narrative statement under the law, because section 364 of the CRPC is very important in that there is a physical interaction between the magistrate and the person who is making the confession, number one. Number two, he is saying to them that you are going to make some statement and might be it is against you and you will become the approver as well.
Right.
And the third is that it is not a narrative statement, it is a statement which is an apart, question 1, question 2.
Of events that
of the
happened.
events, of the
Right.
events.
Right.
And finally, this statement has to be signed by both the magistrate and this is the only statement in CRPC which is being signed either by the witness or by some person who is making the statement to sign, and then finally it is part of the record and it go to the trial court, whosoever would be, and then the accused has the right of the cross examination. So this is the first one part, but the second part important would be that how the FIA would come into the final investigation, what they have alleged and what type of I mean they made the things that certain laws have been violated, including the Official Secret Act or the Pakistan Penal Code or the Constitution as well. So I mean, when will there is a final investigation by the FIA, so then we'll comment on it, how much they have made investigation for to the extent of the events
and
of
the
these
accuracy
Cypher.
Gondi sahab, a lot, the timing of the statement, there's a lot that is being attributed to whether, the accuracy of it. And then we've also seen the JIT in the 9th May case. So, the net seems to be, as it were, tightening on the former Prime Minister, and because of that, there are, the accuracy of the statement, the timing of it is, there are statements now that perhaps there is some suspicion attached to it. How would you counter that?
Whatever happened on the 9th May, it's very condemnable, and there is no excuse for that. Like whoever is involved in it, either it's party chairman, either it's party office bearer or worker, nobody can be spared, because thing is the act done on the 9th May is the act which I think only the enemy of Pakistan can do that, but not the lover of Pakistan can do that. Now thing is that there is a lot of discussion going on. Pakistan People's Party is in the view that we should not ban any political party.
Okay.
But we can ban or we can disqualify those people either who is the chairman of the party, office bearer or worker of the party. In previously, if you see in the Musharraf regime, Pakistan People's Party was also banned, and we came with the Pakistan People's Party parliamentarian. So we don't want that political parties should be banned.
Okay.
But in the MQM, Altaf Hussain was also banned, and his party is also there. But whatever statement and things comes with at that time, Principal Secretary of the Prime Minister, he came with the statement, and he went to magistrate, and he has written the statement. In few days will be clear, because he can go to the court also, because I think he went to the this accountability court today also. But the timings, and you can say the whatever he has done previously, his all other people who has left him, and they are saying that what he was doing at that time, forget that also. When he came to the Supreme Court, and when the Chief Justice asked him to apologize whatever happened on the 9th May, and he said, if I am arrested, reaction will be there. After request of the Chief Justice couple of times, he said, okay, if you say, I can say this. But on the very next day, in the High Court, again he came with the statement, and he gave the statement against the Army Chief. So always he did things like this, and always whenever he say, I don't know, former chief have said this. He when he dissolved the provincial assemblies of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab, he said, Bajwa told me to dissolve the assembly and there will be election.
But he's still saying things about the former COAS as far as the Cypher is concerned even.
The thing is that whoever retires, he always say things about him. Whoever is in the position who is serving, he always say, okay, I want to talk to you, I want to have negotiation with you, just call me for meeting or something. But this is his habit. The people whoever has retired or who has left him, he never owned them. Look, whatever happened to PTI workers or the youth who were misguided by the PTI leadership. When he was arrested, he had got 6 or 7 members committee, that if I am arrested, this 6-7 members committee will run the PTI, and then whatever instructions they give you, you have to follow that. So the youth and the workers were misguided, and now whoever are in the jails, whoever are in the police stations, normally majority of them are jail, nobody is there. Nobody from PTI is there who can say that, okay, we are coming for you. So we have soft corner for them, because they were misguided, and now they are their parents are running here and there, that our children are there, their relatives are running here and there, that there is no PTI, there is no lawyers wing of them who can come to the courts and who can file the application for their bail or something like this. So we think that the political worker, we respect political workers.
Right.
But think what they were misguided by their leadership, that we are doing this. Now look at him, that he has disowned them. He has disowned, and that's why majority of people who were saying that this is our red line, this is our this, and the people who were saying this is our red line, they have gone to the party who has airline now. So they have now their travel has started in the airline now.
Right. Zahid Sahab, what about, politically speaking, okay, there is a political side to all that transpired. There was, political capital, it seems now, that hung in the balance of what happened. But legally speaking, how do you evaluate the strength of this case against the former Prime Minister?
I think it's a very, very important case, and it is another addition to top 5 cases he has been facing in the past 1.5 years. This case is very important in a way that in the past 6 months, the Federal Investigation Agency has started its investigation. Now the case is given to counter-terrorism wing of FIA. And under Section 5, as we were discussing, and we are lucky to have a couple of legal experts, including you, the Section 5 of Secret Act, and so far I know, and I spoke to at least 2 top FIA investigators who are looking into this case, that how it falls under this category. It's very much clear that a person who was responsible, particularly who has an office, and a government servant who was supposed to keep the privacy otherwise, he used this very important matter and this cable, the diplomatic cable, which was a routine matter otherwise, and this statement has been submitted by the then US, in this case, Pakistani diplomat, top diplomat with FIA, that it was a routine matter. It's an established fact that, and otherwise now the principal secretary is saying it's being used for political purpose. So this case carry somehow incriminating stance or evidence could be used, because now the investigation agency having a JIT consists of 5 top officials who are going to submit their report perhaps next month, because they have just statements of all important key figures involving in this case, and next month the top tier leadership of PTI have been summoned by investigation agency, and then perhaps it's the last chance to go there, and they might be going over there to get recorded their statement. But I think the 2 important statements are now with investigators, and they would be submitting their report to Director General Investigation Agency, FIA, and now the FIA is going to file a complaint with counter-terrorism wing, and the case would be going to the court in a special court. And I see it a quite different case, which, if we could recall a memo here, if you remember, of Hamdani like that, it is a quite different case, because the head of the government made a secret thing before the public by political purpose.
Let me come back to you. We have with us Senator Afnan Khan with the PML-N. Senator Sahab, there's a lot that is being attributed to the Cypher conspiracy, but at the time, there was a meeting that was held of the Security Council also. What about the findings that were later attributed to the Cypher at that time? How would you, answer what all unfolded?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. There are many stories, as you're saying, that came out relating to the Cypher. I mean, at one time, initially it was a conspiracy between the United States and the PDM parties, and then that evolved into like another theory that basically was about General Bajwa being the main culprit, and then orchestrating a regime change in Pakistan. And then we saw another conspiracy where there was like someone within Pakistan sent like some information to the ambassador, and then the conspiracy started in US, and then it came back into Pakistan. So I mean, we have like not one, but like around half a dozen, or maybe a little bit more accounts of what has actually transpired. I don't actually give a lot of weightage to what Imran Khan is saying, because someone who has been constantly changing their stance on this topic, not once but like God knows how many times. I think the way to look at it is that when it is convenient for Chairman PTI to basically blame PDM, and then he blames PDM. When it is convenient for him, he blames the establishment. When it is convenient, then he starts blaming the United States. And when it is convenient, he starts blaming everyone but himself. So I think credible investigation into what has actually happened during those days is important, and I think the initiation of the FIA case is in the right direction. We should we are going to have professional officers looking into it, gathering all the data, and then coming to a conclusion which should be close to the reality. So that's what my...
Like you said, the former Prime Minister is blaming, the former COS for a lot that is being said at this time. There seems to be a lot of mudslinging involved. There seems to be a lot of blame game here on overall the policies at that time. We haven't just seen it with relevance to the Cypher, but also other things. Even with regard to politics of the PTI as a whole, he's clearly saying that there were other involvement, there are other people to blame for what has transpired. Will there be an investigation into those assertions also, or do you think that those are just statements that are being made into the wind?
To be honest, I mean, I would rather have like an investigation into what has happened ever since 2017, once the Panama verdict came out, and the whole conspiracy that actually transpired at that time. But we will have to see, I mean, what can be done and what cannot be done. Chairman PDI is not a very credible person. I mean, he's very good at coming up with stories. I mean, if you listen to his recent vlog, he puts all the blame on General Bajwa. And the bizarre thing is that when he's putting all the blame on General Bajwa, he's also afterwards asking for his extension. So if he was the main culprit and whatever happened was because of General Bajwa, then why did he ask for an extension? Because in his utopia, he is always right. In his utopia, he is the most respectful person. But in reality, I mean, this doesn't add up. I mean, if he's blaming General Bajwa for the regime change, then why is he asking for General Bajwa's extension? So there's not one thing, but many things, and it's just unfortunate what has happened in Pakistan in the last 14 years. I mean, this whole idea
Before I
of
move on,
power.
Before I move on, Kundi Sahab here, of course, has also said that there is a categorical stepping away from banning of political parties, and I think that your party also doesn't support them. But if politics was used in this, if the national security of the country was compromised in this manner, under the leadership of one political party, so to speak, would that come under the umbrella? Would that, in your opinion, seep into the overall politics of that political party? Of course, the law of it is also slightly lax in the sense that, of course, there are ways around it. But overall, it does indicate the kind of politics at that time that was being followed as a whole by a certain political party, does it not?
I mean, the whole politics of PTI was always about power grab. Power grab, and then either they don't have any sound policies to implement, or they are on some kind of an agenda to destabilize Pakistan, to destroy Pakistan's foreign relations, to destroy Pakistan's economy to destroy the morality of the society. I mean, I don't actually, to be honest, think that it's all a coincidence. I personally believe that it was all done intentionally to harm the interests of Pakistan. And I mean, whenever there will be like a free and fair inquiry into the whole situation, and hopefully one day that will happen, then a lot of information will come out that has not surfaced so far, and people will be really amazed on how things were run by Chairman PTI. I mean, even today, if you look at it, listen to his vlogs, I mean, it's still everything is about him. I mean, it's like he's at the center of the whole universe, I mean, in a sense. And then he's like, you know, he's the rightful person. Everybody else is like compromised. So this whole, you know, idea of like this party which was led by him and going to bring like a change in Pakistan. The change did came, but it was for the worse. I mean, we degraded our society from a moral perspective. We degraded our economy. We degraded our foreign relationships. I mean, all of that, I mean, comes at a huge cost for our country. So it's very unfortunate. I mean, and the more I can't use the word funny, but I mean, have to in a way that he's still doing that. I mean, from his perspective, he's still on that mission to destroy this country. I mean, he's doing as much damage as he can to our foreign relations. I mean, and that is why, you know, he's taking his stance, because he wants to hurt different interests of Pakistan in different areas. I mean, there have been many political parties who have been thrown out of power. I mean, not once, but many times PML-N has been thrown out of power. There was a martial law against us as well. But never once we have gone this far. I mean, damaging Pakistan's relationship with foreign powers. I mean,
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time, Senator Afnan. Kundi Sahib, again, Senator Saab is also saying that in your experience, being part of a political party that is, you know, some generations old, how would you answer this question? I mean, has it happened the way that the red line, so to speak, there seems to have been no red line that was not crossed, according to what the investigation now seems to indicate, as far as May 9th is concerned, as far as the use of violence was concerned, as far as the Cypher was concerned, where international diplomacy and diplomatic relations between countries, it seems, were compromised for regaining power. Is it one of its kind? Is there a precedent like this in Pakistan at all?
You know, when there was Dharna on D Chowk and what they did with this building where we are sitting right now in PTV, at that time they were given clean sheet, in which again PTI former chairman and now sitting president was also involved in it, but they were given clean sheet. And the same action replay was done in Peshawar with Radio Pakistan. And then other things, you know, what happened in Lahore in Corps Commander House, then GHQ, and if you go to Malakand side, there was FC fort where they did some like they got in and they like broken things. Then there was another fort where they put off Pakistan flag and put PTI flag there. So what message are you giving? The militants used to do this in Suat region, where we had an operation, we cleared that area, and then these things were happening. So especially the Lahore case, his own nephew was involved in it. PTI chairman nephew was involved in it. What was he doing there? And then other, if you see when there was forensic and there was face IDs were given to Nadra, and they identify people who were involved in Miawali or Lahore or wherever it happens. Everybody knows if something happens to, like if I'm doing something, so I'm related to Pakistan People's Party. How can I say I'm not Pakistan People's Party? So thing is that they were, their office bearers were involved in it by the instruction of the leadership. And if these things, you know, in previously when it happened in PTV building, we give them clean sheet. If they get clean sheet here, tomorrow, God forbid, then you will face more violence than this one. So thing is, whoever is involved in this violence, whoever has done the 9th May, they should not be given clean sheet. And I request the judiciary also, whatever they have, but thing is, people come here for justice. So when there is justice in Pakistan, in the country, I think country will be moving smoothly. If there is no justice in the judiciary, then there will be a lot of things happening in the country.
Hafiz Kundi Sahib is talking about justice. Of course, it's the cornerstone of any country, any democracy, any nation. What happened as far as the JIT is concerned? We saw that the FIA has at this time, the legality of it, I want to come to that, has found the former Prime Minister guilty. But it seems the magistrate has also extended his bail. How do you look at the overall legal proceedings there at that time?
There are certain, the legal complex systems in Pakistan, and we always keep saying on it that the Pakistan criminal justice system or even the civil justice system has almost become dysfunctional. There are so many precedents in Pakistan when you are filing a case and you die over there and there is no decision. And simultaneously in criminal matters, if someone commits some crime and offense, and it takes years and years and might be for a decade on this one. So it is happening in Pakistan, a complex system inherited from the British colonial system, keep continuing since 1860. So now there are certain loopholes, and the certain people who are there, they take benefits of the system. And something like that, when you report something until you have really the order of the court of that, so it would be more possible that what is happening over there. The FIA has submitted a report to the concerned court, and they are saying he is required for some purposes, and he was on the interim bail. The interim bail is extended for a period, and then finally there was some arguments on it, and if the court said that there is no grounds for the interim bail, definitely they will dismiss. And if they think that there are certain grounds for granting a bail, they can extend it. So totally depended upon the prosecution, how they present their case on the next date, and how the judge will look at into the investigation conducted by the FIA. So it is more important.
Yasser, what Hafiz was saying, of course, the legal side of things at this time, we've also seen cases against the Prime Minister, his family fall flat as far as, now that they're being subjected to scrutiny. It seems that the evidence isn't there in a lot of cases. It just, the facts don't corroborate with what the documentation. There are clear lapses. Again, it's indication of where the overall justice system is going. These cases, of course, will also be held to that kind of light that are at this time in courts. Do you think that our justice system is going to stand up to any kind of standard as a lawyer?
As a lawyer, that's one of the sort of the great banes of every lawyer in this country. We all, sort of feel that our legal system our justice system has let down the people. And it's because, and like Hafiz Saab said, I think one of the problems is that it is antiquated and outdated. And the British themselves have updated their systems so many times, and we haven't moved beyond 1860s, which is the penal code, and also the criminal procedure code, which is 1890s. I honestly feel that the legal system, this is why we were ranked so poorly, is the legal system has failed to deliver, and that causes, there's a grave lack of trust in amongst the Pakistanis about the legal system,
which is increasing.
And that's very dangerous for any society. So I think that is an issue. I also feel that perhaps the events of the last few years have kind of tainted, unfortunately, and I say this with trepidation and all due respect, I think the actions of our higher judiciary or the superior judiciary their reputation has been tainted, to say the least, especially with sort of their partisan verdicts in certain cases, and I don't need to go over them again, but you know what I'm talking about. I feel that the judiciary itself needs to step up to the plate and be a fair arbiter. And unfortunately, at this point, it's not a fair arbiter. That creates all the problems. And that's why, obviously, when we talk about, and coming back, sort of coming to the whole military courts debate, for example, the fact of the matter is that is precisely why you have to then look for these alternatives. Obviously,
because you want a fast, speedy justice.
Exactly.
that is seen to be done.
Exactly. So on principle, on principle, it is absolutely clear that people should be tried in civilian courts. However, the courts need to, and the leadership and this is the superior judiciary itself, needs to step up to the plate and make sure that prosecutions go through. So for example, in the May 9th issue, I think now it is pretty clear, and I don't think anyone, I don't think there are two opinions about it, but the fact of the matter is that the May 9th events were planned and they were premeditated. I think that's become obvious, and it will go on becoming obvious. So I would imagine that the courts, if they want to preserve their jurisdiction, because it's a question of preserving their jurisdiction, they need to get in and they need to make sure that justice is delivered. And I think unless that's done, we would see more such, essentially those situations where you would want the military to sort of, carry out its own justice. That is an unfortunate thing, but unfortunately that's where we're heading.
Before I only add one line on it, because we are talking about the systems, the delayed, the investigation, what is going on for the last 1 year. So it is important for the parliamentarians to re-overhaul our criminal and civil justice system, make in a way eradicate all the lapses, and a new procedure with the case should be decided within 180 days, so there will be no scot-free in Pakistan.
But I think there's very little time left now, Kundi Sahab, no, to start that kind of legislation, to start that kind of reform into the judicial system.
We are not, like you can say, you can't be late, because thing is, if the parliament time is coming to an end, new parliament is coming, like if there will be election in October or November, and then new parliament comes and they can come with these reforms. Because in every parliament, like I can go very briefly, in 2008, we came with the 18th Amendment, 19th Amendment, and these amendments we came with. Then the next government came, which was PML-N. They came with some amendments. Then another parliament came, this parliament which is right now there, they came with amendments. So there is always space for improvement. So we can improve that things, and it should be improved, I think.
But there are certain amendments that were made rather speedily in your tenure. I'm sure that there could be, now I guess very little time is left, but there
they can be revised. I will not say that I am 100% right or you are 100% right. There are always space for betterment. I can't say that if we have done this, that's full stop there. There is always a space for, like I can say, betterment for that, and we can go for the next parliament comes, they can go for the betterment of that thing. So there is always be there. So I think the main focus should also be there, that every institution should work within their jurisdiction. If I cross the limit and if I say no, I'm a good judge and I can manage judiciary properly as I'm a parliamentarian, and if judiciary say we can run parliament, this is not
that can't happen.
Every institution, either its establishment,
remain within the ambit of their own jurisdiction. Unfortunately, that's all the time that I have. Thank you so much for being with us, Barrister Yasser Latif Hamdani, Hafiz Ahsan Khokhar Saab, Faisal Karim Kundi Saab, Senator Dr. Afnan Ullah Khan, Zahid Gishkori Saab. Overall, of course, what has happened as far as this investigation, the details that have come out as far as the Cypher are concerned, are raising questions as to where the politics of a country as a politician, as a leader of a political party stop, and where your patriotism, where your leadership as a Prime Minister of a nation comes into play. Where do the two dilute, and if they do dilute at all? Where does the oath of the Prime Minister come into play? Where does your allegiance to your country come into play? All of these are relevant questions today for all of us to think about. Other relevant questions are also the issues as far as the judicial system are concerned, as far as our ability to go towards a speedier justice system where justice is not delayed, and of course that it is seen to be done. Are we ever going to go towards that kind of reform that will then lead us to a country where we don't question the courts, where we don't question their decisions? All of these are important questions for us today. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.